First of all, I am a comedian. And the moment people meet me or they get to know I'm a comedian, they always assume things about myself, right? They assume things such as, let's say, he's a happy guy, he makes people happy, he must be happy, right? Oh, he's able to make jokes about anything, he must be optimistic. Oh, you know, this guy loves talking, he must have so many friends. But the truth is, actually, I'm just human, right? I say that because when I wake up, I don't wake up saying, Tuesday, I love it. I don't do that, right? No one's doing that. And I'm a very ordinary guy in the sense that, you know, for example, I don't walk around town going like, ooh, what's funny today? Ooh, I want to have a funny day. I'm a very boring, ordinary guy. And lastly, I'm not that social. I'm actually very self-reflective in the sense that I like to take time to think in my own head. I don't talk so much. And that's actually a thing that I have that I found out about myself is that if I am in front of an audience, like this crowd, I'm a bit nervous but not scared. But if you told me to talk to you one-on-one, I'm nervous and I'm scared, right? That's why you will never see me in a bar, right? A lady sitting by herself. I will never be like, hey, baby, what's your name, right? I would never do that. But if there were 10 women, I'm fine with that. I'm like, hey, ladies, what's your name? Hey, all of you guys, I'm fine. I would do that, right? But it also made me realize a few thins. Like, for example, one of my fears in Hong Kong is actually taking the minibus. Because I always am afraid to say that one phrase when I have to get off the bus to say, chin-min-yau-lok. I never want to say it, right? I'm so scared. Like one day I was on the minibus, right? I'm sitting there, it's almost my stop. And I was like, all right, somebody say it. I don't want to say it, right? And I'm sure everybody else in the bus is also like, I'm not going to say it. You say it, I don't want to say it. So we're all waiting. So finally I'm looking, I'm like, okay, it's almost my stop. You know what? No one's saying it? Okay, I'll say it. Now, because I'm so scared in my head, I have to practice, right? So I'm just, okay, chin-min-yau-lok, okay. Okay, say it, chin-min-yau-lok, okay, come on. All right, nobody? Really, just me? Okay, just, chin-min-yau-lok, right? Now, turns out, the scariest thing is not saying chin-min-yau-lok. The scariest thing is when you say it and the driver has no reaction, right? Because I'm thinking, did he hear me? Huh? And everybody else is like, did he hear you? Nobody helps me. No one's like, you say it. I'm not saying it, right? So finally I'm like, okay, just chin-min-yau-lok, right? And then the driver was like, $10, right? He was upset with me. Now I thought that was the worst moment of the whole journey. I was upset, I was angry. But no, that's not even the worst moment. The worst moment is when I got to my stop and the other passengers got up and got off the bus. I was like, no. You sit down, you say chin-min-yau-lok. Right? Now let's take a step back again. The general person, when they tell a story like that, might reverse it and say something like, you know, I was taking the minibus today, and it was almost my stop, so I looked around since no one else said chin-min-yau-lok. You know, I was the one who said chin-min-yau-lok. And the driver gave me no reaction. So I was like, well, he didn't hear me, so I'm going to say it again. Chin-min-yau-lok. And the driver shouted at me, $10. And I was like, wow, such a rude driver, right? Ridiculous. And you know what's even worse? The other people stayed silent, but when we got to the stop, they got off by themselves without saying anything, right? Generally, people would say that. The reason is because we are always too afraid to dwell in the truth of how we really feel, right? So actually, what I like doing as a comedian is I'm always asking myself, like, why? What am I feeling like this? What's going on in my head? Why am I scared? So a lot of times we are afraid to self-reflect simply because we feel the truth might reveal some tragedies, right? Immediately you think like, oh, I was afraid. No, I'm not afraid. I'm not vulnerable. I'm a strong man. I'm an adult. What am I afraid of, right? The tragedies come out when you really reflect and think about it. But the truth is, tragedy in itself is actually a prime ingredient to comedy. Right? And actually what lies in between the tragedy and comedy is simply just time. And time is something very important in comedy because it allows me to, first of all, look at what just happened, process what just happened, and hopefully transform it into a joke. Right? A lot of times you could just say, oh, life is terrible and everything, but if you build this habit in your head that, you know what, I can make something funny about this, you know. I'm sure there's something funny. Like if I just give it some time, and, you know, process it in my head. And as a comedian, that's all I'm doing. And actually, that has built up a habit in my head that, you know what? Anything is possible, anything is good. Now, not to say every joke I tell works, all right? There are many, many times I'm on stage, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, and the audience is like, huh? Right? And I'm just like, okay, never mind, right? And that happens because one of the people I admire a lot, this guy called Bruce Lee, I'm sure you all know, right? I admire him for the fighting and the thinking because he once said as well, mistakes are always forgivable as long if one has the courage to admit them. And that is the key. Mistakes is going to happen, but are you willing to admit I made a mistake? That is the challenge. And as a comedian, I'm going to come on stage all the time and fail. It's going to happen. It's part of the game. But every time I fail, if I say, well, I guess I'm not funny anymore, I'm going to go home now. If I do that, I automatically have sacrificed my own possibility of being funny. So in other words, if you are unwilling to accept that you will sometimes fail, you are doomed to continuing failing, right? And as a comedian, that's my thing I have to overcome. The challenge is, how many times am I willing to die on stage in front of an audience before I'm going to say, all right, next time I'm going to get it. And that becomes a habit. And that's something I find that's really helped me try to see anything in life. No matter how bad it is, I have to believe there's a certain way, certain time that it's going to turn into comedy. I just have to keep processing it. And I encourage you to think about it that way. Don't be afraid that, oh, it doesn't work today. It does not mean it's the end, right? But it's also an idea that, hey, you know what, something's going to grow over time. So that's another thing. Self-reflection is something I want to talk about. So that's step number one. Looking at everything and reflecting. And one thing you want to remember is that this is a very honest moment. Now, as a comedian, really, I have to take a lot of time to be honest with myself and how I feel. Not to say, don't ask friends for help. But there are some times asking friends for help will blow up in your face. For example, I went to a boys' school, right? And the way boys care about each other is very different from the way, let's say, girls care about each other. Let's say, I was a girl and I called my friend, I'm so unhappy. I just broke up with my boyfriend, right? The other girl will say, oh, what happened? Tell me everything, right? But if I'm a guy, I'm so unhappy. I just broke up with my girlfriend, right? The other guy will just be like this, like, right? Wouldn't even wait. He'd be like, can I call her? Right? Well, you don't want to recycle. Don't waste it. That kind of, silly stuff like that. That's how we do it. So sometimes you have to rely on yourself to be, honest with yourself and think about how you feel. Now, the truth is that, so you got to ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Because the thing is that things are going to happen, but are you able to explain why you're in this position? Again, as a comedian, what I'm really doing is I'm constantly asking, like, why am I like, I tell jokes all the time, I speak all the time, why does chin-min-yau-lok scare me? Right? And the truth is it scares me because I don't want to be the one who says it and doesn't get a response, and now I'm the weird guy. You're like, you didn't hear me, right? I don't want to be the weird guy. And last thing is also what led to this. A lot of times, if we're able to take a step back and wonder, wait, hold on, why did this even happen? For example, I'll come on stage. I could tell a joke today. Let's say it works, great. And after this, I have a show, let's say in another bar. I'll tell the same joke and it won't work. Does that mean the joke is no longer valid? Not necessarily. Maybe the sound system wasn't clear. Maybe the audience was drunk, right? Maybe they weren't even paying attention. There's so many things that can add up together to make something succeed or fail. But also, it's how you feel. Right? So you must remember, self-reflection is a really honest moment, and you go through the process. You ask yourself and you be real. And that's why I encourage people to write a journal. I write a journal all the time, right? And every day I will write an entry about my day. What I also do is I actually take an entry I wrote 1 year ago or 2 years ago, and I read that. And it's really cool to see where you were a year ago. For example, maybe 1 year ago you were in a company, you hated your boss, everything was terrible, right? Now you look back and like, aha, that guy's gone, I love it, right? A lot of times, like my ex-girlfriends, all of them, 3 years ago, heartbroken, oh my God. Now I'm like, bye-bye, I would do that. So a lot of these things, it's just basically a chance for you to be honest and look at where you've been. And you compare that, hey, what are these patterns? I notice for myself is that I'm always scared and nervous about a lot of gigs I do. I'm like, oh, what will happen, what will happen? But it become part of my game. My preparation process is to be nervous. If I came to a gig and I wasn't nervous, I'd be scared. Like, why am I not nervous? I should, that's how I am. I'm supposed to be nervous about, why don't I care anymore? That worries me, all right? So these things let you know where you are. So self-reflection is key, and be honest, right? Write a journal, offline, online, whatever, but keep it private. Make sure nobody reads it until you're dead, right? It's really important. After you're dead, make all the money you need, right? It doesn't matter. As you think, so shall you become. And that's also another thing. And I find that happiness is something in the world that basically, if you believe that you have the power to be happy, you automatically will start searching for things making you happy. For example, simple stuff. If I tell you, go outside in this world and notice all the green objects, you will probably find a bunch of them, right? Even more so now, right? Very easy to find this. That's too easy, right? But the same thing is like, maybe if I tell you, go out into this world and find interesting objects. Now, what is interesting to you, right? So for example, for myself, things are interesting if they're just weird. Like, why would you do that? For example, I noticed like in Hong Kong, every lift has the door close button, right? Because it's part of the essence in Hong Kong. Like, if I enter a lift, I don't press the close button, I feel lost. Right? When I was traveling in Australia, one day I went to the lift and I was like, where's the button? What do I do? Is my destiny in the hands of the lift? What do I wait? I just wait for my future? What's going on, right? You don't know what to do because we're used to that. And I find it very interesting. So I notice those things, right? So all I'm really doing is finding interesting things. So again, happiness can in a way be a habit. In other words, if every day you wake up and you tell yourself, I want to be grateful for something I have. So one thing I like to do is every morning, start my day and tell myself, what am I grateful for from yesterday? Because it builds a habit that you believe that I will, no matter how bad today is, by tomorrow morning, I will find something I'm happy or grateful for, right? So for example, when I wake up, I might say I'm grateful for it not being a rainy day, and that's good enough, right? Or I might just simply say I'm grateful that I had no meetings yesterday and I enjoyed my day to walk in the park, stuff like that, right? So simple things like that builds a habit that no matter how terrible today is, there will be something positive coming out by tomorrow. Again, a lot of times you have to also see the world not in black and white and also realize that the world is actually in gray. So for example, with the Hong Kong protests, prime example, right? Actually, I find it very interesting because now, because of the protests, our English has improved a lot, right? Our slogans, like one of the classic ones, 5 demands, not one less. In the beginning, people were saying 5 demands, no one less. And everyone's like, no, 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 no. It's not one less, right? That's so Hong Kong. Even when we protest, we want to get full marks. You understand? Nobody wants to get a careless mistake at this stuff, right? So all these kind of things, again, looking at for positive angles, a lot of things, it's just how you want to see it, okay? So make it a habit, right? Everything you see, just believe there's a possibility that this can be positive, this can make me happy, but how can you make it happy? It's up to you. So, okay, prime example, let's use the photos again. One thing I like to do, look around, and again, with the protests, you can see very negative, right? Oh, the tragic stuff that's happening. But never forget, even through all the tragedies, there's always some moments where you connect with each other. For example, remember the pictures of people making paper cranes, stuff like that, right? We all came together. Suddenly now we're on the streets. People are like, oh, you thirsty? Have some water. I'm like, wow, you're really nice, right? Very rare. 1 year ago, would you think people giving out water and stuff? Never, right? We would never do that. We would sell it, but not for free, right? At the end of the day, right? So again, on one wall, you might see a whole bunch of people complaining about the terrible things that are going on in life. But on the other wall, we are also connecting with each other. There were moments that we actually stuck things that were positive and saying, hey, you know what, we're all one together. So remember, it's how you see things. And the challenge is, are you willing to see all different angles? Not just two ends saying, that's it, I've concluded it. And if you believe that there's always something positive, you will keep searching those angles till you find the positive one. So ultimately, what I want to say is that whatever side you're saying, it doesn't matter if you're positive, negative, whatever, but the point is that it reveals the truth. And moments of pain are where you get to know yourself. And as a comedian, when you're on stage and you're not funny, that's the moment of truth that you kind of go like, I'm on my own. Nobody cares anymore, right? It's just me and myself. And that's moments I have to take, right? And I encourage you guys, there are moments that you have to feel alone. And you will kind of ask yourself, but why am I doing this? Is this who I am? So again, I could have had a job that I didn't like and stuff, but I really enjoyed the fact of, I'm going to think of something stupid, say it, people will laugh, and they'll pay me money. I love this idea, right? It's a dream job. Again, coming back to Bruce Lee once said, simplify your mind and simplify your life. And that's something I take to heart. In my comedy as well. In the beginning, I was thinking about the technique and all that kind of stuff. But over time, I realized it's not really so much about, oh, I'm going to use this technique. Oh, I'm going to use that rhythm. It's more like just being funny. Simple as that. So as I evolve in my comedy and my person, my content, I talk about changes. For example, in the beginning, 10 years ago, I might talk about being an Indian in Hong Kong, right? So I'll joke about how I'm a hairy guy, ha ha ha, and my friends would say, oh, you're so hairy, are you a monkey? Stuff like that, right? And I would then say, oh, no, I'm not a monkey, but you know hair is so good, right? Because in summer, I don't get the mosquito bites. Yeah. Mosquitoes will fly, they get stuck in my hair. It's fantastic, right? And my friends would say, wow, can I have some hair? Give me some hair, right? And I can proudly say, 我俾條毛你啦, that's all right. We all understand the kind of, not legal rule, but the idea that we stand on the right, walk on the left. We all kind of know that, right? But there's always some guy who says, today, I'm going to be different. I will stand on the left, right? And you're walking up, the guy standing there. You get to the guy on the left, but nobody ever says, excuse me. Right? We just use our eyes and go like, you idiot, you stupid. we hope he can feel what we're saying, right? Moves on to things that are just simply in life. Like, for example, I have a bad habit of being late, right? And one of my things I always say, I'm always running late. So I always come up with all the excuses about why I'm late, all the traffic, the this, the that, which is why the protests are great for me. I can, I'm sorry, protests, I've been late. I can't do anything, right? It's not me, you know. So again, it's how you see things, right? In the tragedy, there is always some sort of positivity, and it's really your challenge. Can you find it for yourself? Otherwise, life is going to be terrible, right? Black is still a color. Now, moving on. At the end of the day, like I said, comedy is equal to tragedy plus time. At the same way, tragedy plus time equals comedy. So, for example, maybe what we can only see at one moment is tragedy, right? Every day, just this is terrible. Oh my God. But give it some time. Really process. Be honest with yourself. Ask yourself questions like, why? Why is this a tragedy? Why is this even happening? And you might reflect and think a bit more, who am I? What can I do? What's going on about the environment? Small things like this you will catch, small little artwork that symbolizes things for us. And at the end of the day, you might find some sort of comedy. For example, I saw a sign that said basically like, all you can eat tear gas, which I thought that was really cool, because think about it, one day, tear gas will be Hong Kong's baptism, right? If you tell me you are a Hong Konger and you've never been tear gassed, get out of my face. Get out of my face. How dare you? Who are you? You with your breathing clear, So again, coming back to, my guy, Bruce Lee, he also said, be happy, but never satisfied. And the truth is, that's the challenge. Happiness is kind of like currency and money. It will fade out. What makes you happy today will get boring. Sometimes people thought, walking on the beach, going to the park is happiness, but do it every day. By the 10th day, you're like, okay, same beach, same park, whatever, right? Same deal. Going for a massage every day, yeah, it's great, but by the 10th day, you're like, oh, stop touching me, or stuff like that, right? So again, it's how you grow. So I really believe in this one thing. This is one thing I hold to my heart, is that I try to be happy, but I'm never satisfied. Every day I'm like, what more can I do? Which brings me back to that journal. And I encourage you guys, if you ever write a journal, read what you wrote before and see where you were a year ago and compare where you are now. And if you find you have not grown and you're not happy, chances are it's also your fault in a way. And I really encourage you guys to think about it. The step is really simple. Self-reflect, go inside, look a bit more. Then you also take time to look around, what's going on, be really honest about it, and finally evolve and grow. And that is the key, and that's how my comedy happens. Every time I find something interesting, I look at it, I'm like, okay, interesting, let me write it down. And I take some time to process it. Okay, what can I do? How can I tell it? What are the words? And lastly, I tell it out, and it doesn't work, I go back and I adjust, and I keep telling it until it works. And finally, hopefully, I have that one joke, people laugh, and we all have a good time. So again, I try my best to be funny, I try my best to be happy, but never think I'm a happy guy all the time, and I'm not always funny, all right? So never come up to a comedian and be like, oh yeah, tell me a joke, right? Because we are the only job where basically people keep challenging us, right? They always tell me a joke. No one ever says, oh yeah, are you a lawyer? Yeah, sue me, right? Thank you much, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day.